You know, for games being in a cage, really not all that bad, which brings up a bigger point. Welcome back to the pit. Yes, ladies and gentlemen, week 2 of the LCS is in the books, and with that means that we're actually already in week 3, because week 3 begins on Thursday and Friday, which, if you didn't get the message 20 billion times on broadcast that, hey, it's on these 2 days, I don't know what to tell you. It amazes me there were so many people last year that they did a similar thing. This maybe not like as over the top with it. Maybe they needed to do this week. But like last year, there were people like, I didn't even know it was going to be on weekday. Why didn't they tell me? It's like there is literally zero excuse for people to be like, hey, I didn't know at all. If you watch the broadcast, if you were on their social media platforms in any way, shape, or form, like, you know this is on Thursday, Friday. If you missed it at that point, you simply do not care about the LCS or don't pay attention to that level at all. Like, even on a casual level, you should know about this day change.
Hey, really quick, I'm on the way to 5,000 subscribers here on YouTube. If you haven't done so, be sure to subscribe already and drop a like down below, because it always helps out the video and the algorithm. But if you like my content and like seeing more League of Legends stuff, at least like 3 days a week, be sure to do so. Wow, this position is really painful.
But before we get to week 3, let's talk about week 2. Because best of 3s are kind of doing exactly what they should do, which is make it a very clear delineation between the good teams and the bad teams and the middle of the road teams. You're seeing some 2-0s right now by the mismatches and the teams that kind of should be in different areas, which eventually will build to some pretty hype matchups whenever we do see them, like TL versus C9. The battle of the 2-0s should be fine. This week, we actually have a really fun one at the bottom of the standings. But even though we haven't had a lot of game 3s yet, best of 3 still don't allow you to get away with the same crap that you could in best of 1s. Starting with Immortals versus Cloud9. Immortals came into this series 1-0 on a series, 2-0 because they were able to beat Shopify. So the question was like, how would they fare against a real team? And the answer, not good. I've been on Tactical's wave for about a year now, where I'm saying like, hey, he's not as bad as people make him out to be. People want to meme him because like the Tristana Malphite Rs and some of his ints on Team Liquid and, you know, a few times after that. But like for the most part, he's been playing very, very well over the past few splits. And now, once again, he's in a situation where he's still the shining star of that team, even if he did have 1 or 2 moments where it was a little bit of an oopsie. Like, he's clearly the best performing player on Immortals. Everybody else around him not performing all that great, especially Armeo. On the Cloud9 side, Thanatos looked a lot better. A lot better. Blabber's definitely coming around. Jojopune's Jojopune, really not much to say there. And C9 looks to be ramping up. Like, they look like they did improve on some of the things that they struggled with in week 1. Granted, it's against a weaker opponent, all things considered, but you'll walk away from this feeling confident that Cloud9 is definitely like at that tier above. Like, they are up with Team Liquid and one other team that I will mention soon. So yeah, don't really know what all to say about that. It was pretty cut and dry 2-0. Well, it wasn't a cut and dry 2-0. It was actually the Dignitas versus 100 Thieves series, which I've talked about in depth on the Rendezvous if you want to go check that out. But game 1 featured one of the most fun base races that we've seen in the LCS for quite some time now, in a situation where it felt like 100 Thieves was crumbling, and even Dignitas was a little bit panicked in their voice comms that, you know, Sniper might be able to pull it off at the end. But yeah, unfortunately, the macro woes of 100 Thieves continue to bite them in the butt, as Quid had a really bad week. If we were on MVP watch for him last week, yeah, he ain't on MVP watch after this week. He had a very, very bad set of games, consistently getting caught out, consistently getting solo killed. Sniper also out of position quite a few times on a comp that requires people to know their limits, especially with like Camille Yone split pushing comp. You got to make sure that you're not pushing too far up and throwing so that they can just 5v4 objectives, because you've lost all your split push pressure, and that's exactly what happened to 100 Thieves. And then game 2, yeah, they just got stomped in the solo lanes. Both Sniper and Quid fell behind. Licorice and Jensen continuing to have one hell of a year. Like, I know people were going to write it off because of how finals went back in spring, but I mean, he's one of the best performing mid laners in the league. No? Like, even in the loss to Team Liquid, he still looked good. Like, and this week he looks great as well. But eyes are understandably going to be on Sven, who had, once again, a good week 1, and now a hell of a week 2. He played solid. The fastest smolder 225 stacks in the, I think, in LoL esports history, which, to be fair, is more on 100 Thieves for allowing him to get to that point. But then a really solid game 2 as well. Yeah, this dude's just on one, and I'm so happy to have him back as an ADC in this league. Dignitas, I quite honestly would put up there with some of the top teams without question. Now on to Sunday. We'll get actually the second series out of the way first. Yeah, TL stomped Shopify into the ground, which I think is twofold. First and foremost, Team Liquid, I feel like, is the first clear-cut favorite team that we've had in the LCS since Cloud9 2020. Ever since that point, it feels like things have kind of been up in the air as teams can't really figure out okay, are we good now? Are we going to be really great? You look at 2021 C9, and even though they had the Perks roster, they weren't really all that great because you had this TL Alfari roster kind of nagging at their heels the entire time. It just feels like Team Liquid is a clear cut above everybody else, and they took what they learned at MSI and are actually better for it. Yawn and Core JJ are the best bot lane in the West, self-proclaimed, and I'm going to agree with that, or at least the best solution Nami at a minimum. We can debate the whole bot. I still personally think they are, but that's just me. And APA, despite having some in-plays, especially in Game 2 versus Insanity, overall still looks incredible. On the Shopify front, it's ugly. It's really ugly. A loss to Immortals was already bad enough in a 2-0 fashion, but the way they lost this was arguably worse than their loss to Immortals. There felt like there was no hope in this series. Even in Game 2, where it looked like they were starting to put back a fight a little bit, Game 2 actually ended quicker than the Game 1 stomp where they never had a chance. And it's just I don't know what to tell Shopify. I don't for Cloud. Sorry, I know you're a Shopify fan, brother. I don't know what to say at that point. 2 series in, and it literally looks like their season's over. I got crap for saying that last week, but I think after this week's games, even though it is the #1 team in the LCS, we'll get into it week 3. But the first series of Sunday, NRG versus FlyQuest, 2 teams that were 0-1 that needed to bounce back a little bit, and the question was, who would? And it actually went to a full 3 games, so you would assume that this was a fairly close series, right? And I'm nah, this felt pretty handed against NRG, if I'm being honest. Game 2's win for NRG felt like a real big struggle to get there. The team just feels disconnected, where Huhi and Contracts will try and make plays, but then nobody else is really with them or not really on the same page. Dokla's having a really rough split, a really rough year, if we're being completely honest. And Palafox, while he has his moments, it's not like it was last year. The benchmark for him will always be what he was able to do in summer, which was he was the best mid laner in the league at that point. I don't quite know what's going on, but I got the chance to talk to Palafox and their current struggles and how he thinks they're going to recover after a really tough 0-2 start.
Hey, Palafox. How's it going, man?
Oh, yo, hey.
I don't really know how to start. I'm just asking how you feeling.
Feeling okay. I mean, I think better result than last week. I think Fly is a generally better team than 100, so that's okay.
That's fair. Coming into the series, Thinkar did an interview on stage saying that you guys worked on a bunch of different things that he expected to show on stage now and then obviously improve as weeks go on. Do you feel like even despite the loss, you were able to show the things that you guys worked on throughout the week?
Considering the first week showing, I think so. The thing is, we still need to work on those things. So I think we're getting there slowly but surely.
Is it different feeling knowing that even though you're 2 weeks in theory, I think 20% of the season is done? So instead of having multiple best of ones where, in theory you could bounce back a little bit quicker, it's you got 5 series left and that's it.
No, I mean, I think this is nice, It's kind of nice to see how good teams are in the first game, if that makes sense. I think if this was just a normal 1-4, which would honestly probably feel worse than 0-2, and I think that we just need to kind of step it up, put up a little bit more pressure on ourselves to do better.
I mean, you guys got probably, I'd argue, the most important series of the split so far coming up with Immortals on a short week's rest. Have you been prepping knowing that you're only going to have 4 days to turn this around going into that? And what's your thoughts going into the Immortals series with this pretty much being a must win?
I think Immortals is a generally solid team, but because we're playing a bit better, I'm pretty confident going into the series. I think that they're pretty telegraphed in the way that they want to play in their style, and they don't really have somebody who shines a lot of the time,
Yeah.
So it ends up just being they play standard they win, they lose. If anyone makes a mistake, I don't think they're amazing team fighters. So it's like it's a generally like easy matchup. I think we just need to play like fundamentally good.
I was gonna say your guys' macro and like your team fighting in general definitely still looks good, at least from what we're seeing. I'm not sure how it feels for you guys, but at least on our side, like there's so many times, even in that last game, where like you guys are down 3K, and it's like, okay, you guys are winning fights that most other teams with 3K down, like you would think it'd be done and over with. So you guys were putting a fight back.
Yeah, I mean, generally, I think they kind of just had like better fundamentals than us. I don't really think that they're like when I playing against FlyQuest, I don't really think like they are that good. I just think that we're kind of a little clueless in mid game, and we need to go in with a very clear plan so everybody knows what's going on.
Gotcha. Yesterday,
Yeah.
after the Dignitas series, Sven had he personally thanked you guys for allowing them to beat 100 Thieves. Is there anything you want to say about that scrim, or is there a story to tell about the quote confidence boosting series?
No, I mean that just kind of happens, you know. Like sometimes you're a little bit more experimental in scrims and it doesn't work out. So yeah,
It feels
it is.
it feels like that point though, like the experiment in scrims has been, I don't know if it's just talked about more over the last year. You've heard it with 100 Thieves. We're now hearing it with like that series and a few other teams as well, where it's like people experimenting more in scrims seems to be coming to light. And I don't know if it was, at least that narrative was never always painted. It used to be like, oh, we're doing incredibly well in scrims, but like you never heard about kind of like the backstory behind everything. Do you feel like there's a difference in scrim culture over the last like year compared to, I don't know, 2019, 2020-ish?
I wouldn't really be able to talk too much on it just because like in 2019 I was on a winning team. In 2020 I was also on a winning team in like CNN Academy, right?
Yeah.
And then I don't really think that like when I watched the main team scrims over there, they really experimented that much. But I think there's like a good amount more now, and it's just a little bit more since then, right? It's slowly getting there because people are like always adapting, right?
While I try and think about it, anything you want to put out there for the NRG fans that might be a little bit worried at the moment with the record?
I mean, if you were an NRG fan, you wouldn't.
That's fair.
Yeah, but thank you guys.
Yeah. Any teams that are surprising you so far?
I think TL is pretty good in scrims, but I don't think that they show their fundamentals on stage. I mean, that could also just be like other teams playing better, but generally, I think they're pretty solid all around.
Gotcha. That's what I was going to ask you about the stage. Thank you for saying that. Are you noticing a difference between how teams play when on the side stage versus on the main stage with fans?
Not at all. It's like that's not really what I'm like able to tap into,
No, I don't mean that in the sense of like whether that impacts you guys. It's just like I've heard from multiple people now, and we heard the statement last split as well of like some people like not having the pressure of fans being there and liked kind of being away from the public eye. I don't know how common or how popular of a statement that was, but when I talked to Sniper, I think once he said the same thing of like, yeah, I just don't. It is harder for me to take it seriously when I don't have more eyeballs on me.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's true. I mean, it's just like there's that added pressure with the audience, and I think like you have some like fan interactions before the game too, so it does like definitely feel like nice for people who are more used to it. But I think if you're not really used to it, obviously you're gonna like not playing in front of people, and some people are always like that, right? So,
I mean, that's fair. When the light shines brighter, some people step up, some people don't.
Yeah.
But I got nothing else for you in terms of questions other than just make sure you get some rest for the upcoming week. I know it's a quick turnaround, so hope you guys make the most of it. I'm looking forward to your series.
All right, thank you. Have a good one.
You too. See ya.
This is normally where I would put LCS news, but honestly, there's really not much to talk about given that it's a very short turnaround. There's really no news that can happen. I have to film this on Monday, so if news comes out, it would typically be on Tuesday. But there is one piece that is starting to be talked about that is going to impact North American people as well, and that is, let's talk about the guy that was on the broadcast this past weekend. Kangas. Everybody was really high on him. Everybody was loving his interviewing, loving every part of it, wanted him on the LCS broadcast, and then he announced earlier today that he is going to be doing the Esports World Cup, which I'm telling you right now, I don't hold against him. You got to pay bills. Trust me, finding a job in this market right now ain't easy. You don't know his situation. They offer a good bit of money to be able to hold him through. As long as he hasn't been virtue signaling in the past that like, hey, anybody that ever does this is evil. It's like, hey, you do you and you get your bag. I've made it very clear that despite the obvious atrocities that have happened under the Saudi regime, I watch Live Golf. I watch these things that are ultimately sports washed by them, so it's not like I have any moral grounds to say anything at all. But it is going to be interesting to see how people react as all the announcements come out this week, since the Esports World Cup is 2.5 weeks away. Kangas is going, Joshi is going, we know Atlas is going based on the teaser. But I'm gonna save that for a full separate video after the tournament's done that kind of like recaps it. But I just wanted to but the reason I bring this up is because I want to get a pulse on the conversation of how people are feeling. Like when it came to the orgs, people were like zero tolerance policy, but when it comes to the talent, especially those that don't have the money to necessarily hold off whenever, say, you know, $100,000 bat, this is entirely made up number, but say $100,000 is thrown out there for 3 days. Would you turn it down? It's easy to sit here and say no whenever you don't have to make the decision to pay your bills and everything else. And I'm curious to know where the community stands on this front, but we'll talk about it more later. For now, I want to throw that ethical question out there. And second, we are finally back out of the cage. We are going into the LCS studio, but I will say for like this specific round of like the no fan stuff, as much as I still hate that portion of it, I wish fans were there, and by all means, I think there are certain teams like 100 Thieves that definitely play better whenever there are fans around. They did a much better job this time of just like the interviews with the players and making it feel a little bit better. But ultimately, this does feed into my end game point of like, I don't think you need to be in studio at that point. I'd rather see games just played elsewhere, or play them online and dedicate that money to watch parties, to events going on in different cities. Like, if that's the angle that they're trying to go to show that like, hey, viewership was stable week over week despite not having fans, and that you really don't need all that, then you should take it in the opposite direction, not cut everything. Because I can already feel this coming of where the argument's like, oh, well, you know, things were stable. Do we really need to play in the studio? Could we just give Valorant the studio and League just plays from the closet forever, and then we travel occasionally for road shows? It's like, no, you need to be with fans. Don't be dumb. I know Mark Z knows that. I know, like, in general, most people know that, but executives don't. Executives will just look at the numbers and be like, okay, so like these are good, we can just cut one thing, and I don't want to see that happen. As for week 3, man, do we have some bangers at the first match and the final match, and then in the middle it's gonna be rough. Starting off, we've got a yes, 0-2 NRG, and I'm calling it right now. Whichever one of these two teams loses this series is making a roster change period. For NRG, I'm looking at either Dokla, actually just Dokla, probably. For Immortals, I am looking at Armeo. I think if either one, like at some point you have to start replacing pieces now, because then if you try to go into the offseason and fight against C9, TL, and everybody else, it's like fighting for top tier talent, especially as you're like looking to pull from academy and like give younger people chances that are on, you know, smaller payrolls. Like, you're gonna lose out to them, especially when Surdy is on the market right now. I'm not sure what kind of buyout he has from FlyQuest, but like, yeah, he would be my first eyes on. Prediction for this series? Oh god, probably NRG 2-0. Like, I still feel like they're close enough to like being able to rebound and get it back, especially given how close they played FlyQuest, even if FlyQuest is a little bit sloppy around the edges. I don't know, I just feel like NRG's got it for whatever reason. If this ends up being a 2-1, I wouldn't be shocked. But yeah, I'm saying 2-0 NRG. Oh, this is gonna pay me to say as a 100 Thieves fans. We're just gonna gloss over this briefly. TL is like the best team in the league, bar none. They've gotten much better from last year, from where 100 Thieves was. Whenever 100 Thieves beat them both times in the regular season, remember that Impact has gotten shit on by Sniper every single time, and I really hope that keeps happening. But everywhere else on the map has gotten substantially better. So maybe being in front of a crowd will even this up a little bit more, but like 2-100 Thieves, yeah, I'm scared. On Sunday, we're starting off with a stomp. It's Cloud9 versus Shopify. I don't see a world where Shopify contends in this series whatsoever. I think it's going to be a jungle kingdom of Blabber over Tomio. I think mid lane is just going to, oh god, Jojo Pian's going to put Insanity in a body bag. And like, if there was ever a week for like Thanatos to officially like make his statement of like, I'm here, Fudge is never coming back on this roster, it would be now. a swift 2-0 and kicking Fake God's ass, which would ultimately be funny because I think Fudge is like the main person that you should be looking at to replace Fake God. So you could have a world where like Fudge is just watching this and be like, get out the chair, let me in. And then comes into Shopify and they like turn it around a little bit. Maybe, I don't know, but I don't think the series is going to be all that close. Hey, maybe B-Boy can do something against Berserker. I know it's as ridiculous as that sounds like coming out of my mouth now. Even if B-Boy has been playing well, it's no disrespect to him. It's just like, I just don't see it. A world where Shopify even contends. Then we get to the banger, like the probably the best series of the entire weekend, which is going to be Dignitas versus FlyQuest. FlyQuest bouncing back after their week 1 loss in the 3-game series to winning a 3-game series now to go against a Dignitas that's also 1-1, but honestly, like I'm favoring Dig here. FlyQuest has looked messy for sure, and Dig is one of those teams that just feels like they are ramping up quickly. They've talked about how their scrims weren't going well at the beginning, but they're slowly turning it around. I've seen enough from their players to see, yeah, they're almost back in form already, and it's just a matter of like flushing out the teamwork and making sure they work well as a group. And then on FlyQuest side, like Quad is coming to his own, sure, but I don't know. This one in particular feels like a really good grudge match. You got Jensen versus his old org. You have Sven versus the younger players that are just a little bit more sloppy that can put them in their place. Licorice versus Blippo, which I think is, people are going to side heavily with Dig on this one just because like they love Licorice and Spica relative to Blippo inspired. And I just think like this is going to be one of the biggest like community mismatches that we've seen all year as like Dig's popularity continues to soar. FlyQuest popularity is kind of like, other than Busio, is kind of like, Masu doesn't say enough to like really kind of get there. It's really just Blippo inspired that like really get under people's skin, but it's literally like Captains America versus EU. And I truly think Dig is actually going to be the better team. I think it's going to go to 3 games. I still think they have their moments where it's a little bit messy and FlyQuest is able to pick this up, assuming that Dig isn't dumb and lets Skarner up. But assuming that's the case, I'm actually going to go 2-1 Dignitas. I have faith in this Dig roster to actually be really damn good. I do think it is, as of right now, between Dig, Team Liquid, and Cloud9 at the top of the standings, and we're waiting to see if any of the other teams in the middle ground, including 100 Thieves, including FlyQuest, whether they can break up into that mold. All right, that's it for me on the pit this week. Short turnaround. Again, matches start tomorrow, Thursday. 100 Thieves. I'll be live to watch that series on stream, not with like the actual gameplay, but the live view as always. So be sure to stop by. Be sure to subscribe if you haven't done so already, and I'll catch you on the next video.